In this episode of Creativity in the Enneagram, I'm talking to Self-Preservation 9, Suzanne Taylor. Suzanne is an executive coach who has a broad business background, has taught more than 800 students through numerous courses at Stanford University, including the Enneagram, leadership and entrepreneurship courses, and has published 5 books. Her latest is called Leadership Journey Workbook, Self-Reflections and Actions for Growth. And I'll include links to all of those books and things below. In this conversation, we explore how Suzanne creates discomfort in her life, how she re-energizes herself, and how she uses routines to help her be more creative, and how she knows when to stop using them. If you're new here, I'm Samantha Mackay, an Enneagram coach focused on how we can nourish and heal our bodies and inner world so we can live with purpose. All right, enjoy. So what does creativity mean to you?
I think it means bringing something new out into the world. It starts inside of you, but then it somehow needs to be expressed or articulated.
And so for you, what does that look like in your personal or professional life?
I try to live every day in a creative way. So a lot of my work is taken with a creative lens. I try to put on my creative glasses on. When I have my coaching conversations, I see those as creative conversations. When I teach, those are also creative classes. I'm doing some writing right now. I've written 5 books and I'm writing my 6th. So that's a very wonderful creative process. I love to get to that creative flow. So a lot of my attention is actually focused on how can I generate and support myself to find more creative flow. I recently had 4 days in a row where I was feeling really a lot of creativity in the mornings. And I created 3 different workshops in those mornings, 4 mornings in a row. And that just is so energizing and fun.
And so I'm curious, as a self-pres 9, what have you noticed that supports you to be creative?
Well, I do love my comforts and routines. One of them is 3 cups of coffee in the morning. So I do a variety of reflections also in the morning with my coffee, and those get me off to a great start. I do some different ones, but one that I do a lot that I learned at the Hoffman process, which was co-created by Claudio Naranjo, by the way, is what's called a quad check. And it's where you check in with your body, and then your heart, and then your head, and your spirit. So that's one of the reflections that I do with myself, with my coffee, while petting my cat and looking outside the window at the trees. Nature is a huge deal, so I spend a lot of time outside every day. Sometimes it's just looking up at the clouds and listening to the bird song. Today I was really noticing the beautiful flowers. You can see from my background, I love colorful flowers. I'm really into all 5 senses. One of my favorite hobbies is fragrance. So I've been collecting different and testing different perfumes and figuring out which ones I like and identifying the different ingredients. So all of these things really support me. And I definitely need my daily walking, and I love learning. So I'll usually listen to a podcast on my walk. And I'll plant little seeds in my mind. And I do get ideas from out of nowhere unexpectedly. Sometimes it is while I'm on a walk, and like a new workshop will just download right into my head, and I have to stop and write it down and send it to myself on my phone. So just really being open to whenever that creative urge arises is another thing. And like now I'm editing my latest book, and so every day I set the timer for 30 minutes in the morning. I'm most productive and creative in the morning. And I'll work on a certain section, but then I'll look at a little sneak peek for what I'm going to be doing the next day. And what that does is it just plants those little seeds in the back of my mind so I can sleep on it, and my brain's working on it even though I'm not actively thinking about it.
It sounds like you found a way to make routines really helpful and supportive of the creative process, because I'm hearing with this setting that 30 minutes in the morning and then sneak peeking, like that's a routine that's supporting you to do that creative work. And the planting seeds is a routine that's supporting you to do that creative work. So that's fascinating, because sometimes we hear about how self-pres nines, when they merge with routines, they lose track of their own agenda or priority. How do you play with that or get that balance working for you?
Well, one is to notice if I'm getting too routinized or too comfortable, because as Chestnut Paes taught me in one of their workshops, the way for a self-pres 9 to grow is physical discomfort. And when Uranio said that, I thought in my head, oh shit. So that means things sometimes that I deliberately do that are very physically uncomfortable, like a cold shower or going up and walking on the hills before I've had my coffee.
Oh,
Or during my stroll, suddenly breaking out into a sprint for 30 seconds, or doing those hit routines, burpees and weights, things that are kind of hard. So it's to remember to cause some discomfort that's not going to hurt me,
mm,
but that will cause some growth to occur and not get too comfortable. So I took an improv class last winter at
mhm.
Stanford through continuing studies from the woman, Patricia Madsen, who created the improv group in the drama department there. And she wrote the book, Improv Wisdom. So I thought, oh, I want to take this class with Patricia. And it just really taught me that you don't have to have a plan. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, show up, be open and curious and willing to make a mistake. And if you
Mm.
make a mistake, it's fine. Who cares? And enjoy the process. So that really helped me in other ways besides the activities in class to approach each day as an improv, because unexpected things happen all the time. Like one time I was supposed to meet my friend for coffee and it was 10 minutes late. I, texted her 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late. So finally I just said, Julie, let's reschedule. But I wasn't upset at all. I was thoroughly enjoying my coffee and this cute little cafe. And then I decided to go on this new walk, explore some new neighborhoods.
Mm.
And, she was so apologetic that she got the days mixed up. But I said, it's honestly, it was no problem at all because I'm improving, which also looks like improving. But if you go about your life improving, then no matter what happens, you go with the flow.
I love that reminder about creating physical discomfort to help shake things loose a little. And I love your suggestions for doing that. And I became quite uncomfortable at the thought of making myself physically uncomfortable. So I'll have to spend some more time thinking about that. But I remember Aranio talked about nines sitting in an uncomfortable chair, taking their favorite chair and replacing it with a really hard wooden chair. That's the visual that came up when you said that. It reminded me of the hard wooden chair
Yeah.
um, to sit
That can
on.
hurt. That can hurt my butt.
Yeah. But
And
it sounds like,
actually, yeah, I just did a long car ride and I drove, and it was almost 5 hours there and back to Sequoia National Park with my husband.
mm,
And, I was getting that sensation of, ow, my body wants to move. Instead, I'm stuck in this position for many hours. So that was also physical discomfort. But
mm.
then it's a great way to reframe these things. So like, hey, I'm growing.
Yeah. I love the improving thing because it's because improv is creative in that sense of it's just allowing you to flow with the moment, responding to what's
Yes.
ever happening right now. It's a great philosophy.
Yeah, we did. I'm remembering one team activity where four of us lied down, and then she asked the rest of the class, we were dead in a cemetery. What
Okay.
town are they in? And someone shouted out some town in Illinois. And so we were each to sit up, say our names and how we died. And of course, I've never done anything like this, but we're all lying on our back. And the first two people went, and the third person went, and she said, my name is Peggy Sue, and I was only 15 when I got in a terrible accident on the farm with the tractor, and then she went back. And so then I just sat up and said, I'm Marianne, I'm Peggy Sue's grandmother, and I just died of a broken heart when Peggy Sue died, and I went back down. So obviously it was just all in the moment,
Mm,
and it's super fun that way.
super fun. And it just reminded me that improv is quite physical in a way. Like it's not, you don't sit around thinking about things. You're not always connecting with people although people are generally part of it, it's like a very physical, embodied activity.
Yes, and another way I try not to get too routinized is try new things and different things. So whether it's going on a new trip somewhere, or I found this new ecstatic dance class. Have you ever done that?
I did 5 rhythms, which I think is similar. I
I
did it
think it's
once.
similar, but it's
Yeah.
basically 2 hours, no talking, you're just moving. And what I loved was just getting out of my head. I wasn't thinking, I was
Mhm.
moving with the music.
Mm.
And it's like dance, like no one's watching, but actually people are. But, most people kind of kept their little area and stayed
Yeah.
with, but I was all over the dance floor the whole time. And it was just so fun.
Mm.
And maybe that's because I'm a body type too, but I just love that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I had a great time. Ours came with a facilitator. And so partway through, there were little instructions like partner up with someone or touch someone here. And I was like, oh, I'm happy to dance like a crazy person in the corner, but like interact with another human? I didn't sign up for that.
Yes, and you're probably not introverted as a self-pres 7, but I am definitely introverted as a self-pres 9. And I saw a chart that someone did on Reddit, and they tried to put all 27 subtypes from introverted to extroverted. And self-pres 9 is one of the most introverted, but I think a lot of people don't realize it. In fact,
Mm,
some friends who I've known for years have called me extroverted. And so then I've been starting to tell more people I'm actually introverted and I need my solo time a lot. And like I just had a 2-day business school reunion this
mm,
week, and it was 7 activities over 2 days, and they were very social. I mean,
mm.
it was really a stretch for me in my comfort zone. So I ended up going to 4 out of the 7 events, which was fine. I intended to go to 5. I didn't quite make it to one because I was really tired, but I was just very aware that I needed to balance it out and I couldn't push myself too much.
And I've found myself more and more introverted over time. But I think it's important to start to let people know. Actually, you might think I'm extroverted, but most of the time I'm very introverted. I think it's important
Yeah.
to say that. So I'm curious, how do you manage creative blocks? Like, what do they look like for you, and what do you do when they arrive?
Yeah. When I saw that question, I thought, well, I don't actually call them creative blocks.
Mm,
I just consider them part of the creative process. And so sometimes you need to take a break and refresh and renew. So when I wrote my book 3 years ago, I did a 90-day challenge. And basically, in the morning for 30 minutes a day for 90 days, I wrote the book and I self published it, and it was completely done and available in 90 days. And I thought, ooh, because I got
wow.
this new idea I'm working on now. And I thought, let me try that again. Because having that kind of routine, that kind of framework or structure
Mm,
also supports the creative work, right? When you can get a structure that works for you.
very much so.
So I thought, January 1st, I'm going to do another 90-day challenge for this new idea. And what I found is this book is a lot harder. So after 60 days, I had 150 pages of a very messy first draft, but I thought I need to take a break.
Mm,
And I looked at my calendar and I just started up the editing process of it. I'm going to do 50 days of editing now. But it was wonderful because in that little break of 6 weeks, I did a lot of other things. I went on a couple of trips. I planned some other new trips. I did these 3 workshops that I mentioned to you. I saw a lot more friends. I got ready to teach my next class. I just did so many different things. And when I started up with this 50 days of editing again, it's been super productive. So it was a refresh and renew break. And I
mm,
think, of course, my brain again is still working on it in the back of my mind. And I'm always kind of, my antenna are up looking for new ideas or possible content.
mm.
Um, but if I just force myself to do it when I'm not feeling it, it's probably not going to be very enjoyable or good.
Mm. I noticed that too. And I love how you recognize that just those times when things aren't flowing is just part of the process. It will naturally happen. It's not anything to be worried or ashamed or annoyed about. It's just recognizing that you need to switch focus or take a break or change environment or something for maybe a short time or maybe a few weeks, and that's all okay.
Yeah, I think I was reading some creativity books from the Stanford D School, the design school. They have a whole series of new books.
Mm.
And they're talking about Leonardo da Vinci would take deliberate breaks. And he had so many different interests and skills. And so that was part of what he would do. He would kind of like do one thing for a while, then he'd get energy to do another thing. And, each one fed the other, and it created this combination of creative activities and energy. And then it also talked about how Michelangelo would have this beautiful white Carrara marble, and he felt like the statue was already within the block of marble, that his job was just to chip away what wasn't needed. And so I think with Enneagram work, that's true too, because you're trying to chip away at the ego and get at the essential self underneath. So
Mm.
sometimes creativity is taking away that extra stuff and making it more simple.
When you were talking about Leonardo da Vinci, it made me realize how I feel like we live in a world now that prefers us or prioritizes that specialization, the focusing on only one thing, and less valuation of the Renaissance approach of being good at many things or exploring many things in life. And obviously, sevens are good at exploring many things in life, but there is this pressure to be good at one thing, to be known for one thing. And I think we miss out on something in the creative process when we can pull in and explore completely different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, lifelong learning is one of the three elements that leads to longevity, along with purpose and good relationships.
Mm.
But I also think it's important to repot yourself in work when the old thing isn't necessarily helping you grow and learn and contribute anymore. So I've done brand management, product management, teaching, writing, coaching, and now I'm doing a lot of volunteering also. So applying these skills in a new way with nonprofits.
Mm.
But when a plant gets too big for its pot and the leaves and roots are all tangled up, it needs a bigger pot. So sometimes you just need to find a different pot.
I like that. I like the idea of just repotting.
Yeah. And you can tell I like metaphors, and metaphors are also creative.
Mm.
So I'm really attuned to them.
I'm curious, you obviously known you're a self-pres 9 for a while. Has that changed or shaped your creativity or creative expression in any way?
Well, part of the 9 is moving to right action, to step into a bigger, more powerful position. And Urania always says that a really well-developed 9 can have the most energy of any of the subtypes or
Mm.
types. And so I always think, ooh, that's so powerful, like to say the difficult thing or to step up and do the difficult thing. Instead of numbing out, to express myself in a powerful, authentic way. So that it's really helped me to do that, to see that this is good for me, it's good for my growth. And oh, by the way, it can also help others. So it's good for my impact.
I remember Arani often does this sort of meditative activity with 9 about bringing all the energy back into the body that's been sort of spread out around them. Is that something you practically do as a meditation, or do you find other ways to bring that energy back inside?
Well, I think that quad check I mentioned helps me do that, really tuning into my body. Like, body, what do you need today? Where do you feel tense? Where do you feel at ease? What would really make you feel vital and energetic today? And, really giving appreciation to my body, then moving on to my heart, and then my head, and then my spirit. So I think that's a great way to tune back into all four parts.
That sounds good. I'm curious. I'm going to have to get some more information about that because
Yeah, the
I'd like.
Hoffman process.
So, what have you noticed about the self-pres 9 that's different from the social 9 or the sexual 9?
Well, when I learned this in the Chestnut Paes workshops, it really resonated with me that the self-pres 9 is more introverted and is more irritable and stubborn. So there is some of that 8 energy knocking at the door and maybe more into the physical and comforts and routines. But that's what I loved learning about the subtypes was it really was more precise and therefore more useful. And with my clients as well, getting to the subtype levels really crucial. And it also helps people who are new to the Enneagram system see that it's not just a typology. You can't put everyone into just 9 different things. It's actually 27. And if you add in the instincts, it's even a bigger number.
Yeah,
I'm a
56.
social repressed. So all that work also has really helped me see when I tend to withdraw from groups or get
Mm.
suspicious or, just kind of have a negative reaction in different political or bureaucratic situations and instead lean forward, see how can I engage in this meeting instead of withdraw and start to judge everybody in my mind.
Yeah, I think I started to, when I realized I was a social oppressed, reflecting on all my corporate experiences and just how tense and anxious I was in any kind of group meeting. I would try and meet people one on one before the meetings just to take the tension out of the meeting because it was such an anxious space for me. So, yeah, it's amazing
Yes,
that.
one-on-one is much easier.
Much
Yes.
easier. I'm curious about the irritability because nines still tend to have this sweetness to some extent, um, and a little bit of that reserved nature. Although obviously with sexual nines, you see that sweetness much more strongly. But what is the irritability about, or how do you see that for the self-pres nine?
Well, certain things, as Ginger Lapidvagda says, are pinches. And so for these types of pinches, it would be, for example, people trying to tell me what to do. No, I'm going to decide what to do. Or people not answering or responding to my messages. Hey, I'm here. Why didn't you answer? Um, People who are very, in my mind, not very aware, like they'll dominate a conversation and take up 80% of the airtime.
Mm,
And of course, this is reflecting on me. I need to learn how to speak up and say something. I was just leading a training about this for this women's circle group that I help volunteer for. And we came up with some wording that you would say if one member starts to dominate the conversation. Now, this isn't going to be easy for a 9, but what I came up with that I shared with the big group was I need to interrupt you. I'm doing a time check, and I want to make sure everyone has an equal chance to speak. So I want to move on to Mary, but first, do you have one last thing you'd like to say?
mm,
Now, that is a skillful way of expressing myself in a purposeful way, and it's very clear and it's assertive. It may cause some conflict, but what I found is that speaking up more, giving more feedback, engaging in positive conflict has really improved my confidence and ability to do so.
mm.
So it needs to be said, it needs to be practiced.
When I think of irritability, I think more of like short sentences and raised voices and like a little bit of a crankiness to it. Is that what it's like for you to be irritable?
Um, Maybe when the kids were little and there was just a lot of running around with little feet and having to feed and clothe and make sure everyone did their homework. That's sort of the irritability that comes with motherhood. So that's what
Yes.
that reminds me of a long time ago. They're all
Ah,
grown up now.
okay. And so,
Well, here's a recent example. There has been some loud noise on our street because some of the homeowners are doing major construction projects. So it's not only the leaf blowers, which are always around, but jackhammers,
mm,
huge trucks grinding the asphalt, cutting down huge trees, chomping them, and the wood chipper thing. I mean, really loud noises also really bother me.
mm,
One time I came home and there was a big red pickup truck parked and blocking some of our driveway and our walkway. And this is unusual, but I wrote a note right away. I said, will you please move your truck? It's blocking. And I put it under the windshield wiper and I stood out there taking up a lot of space. And I was looking around like I was a territorial gorilla. And he saw me, the construction worker came over, and I said, would you please move your truck? He said, I will. And I was a little flustered afterwards. I went inside. I lost my phone. It was around somewhere, but it took me a while to calm down. My heart was pounding. But that was an example where the anger really came out, and it was from just too much of this, too much of this noise and this construction hassle. So that's another area I need to work on, but I was proud that I did
Yeah,
speak
that's
up like a gorilla.
really impressive. And the thing I've noticed with nines, not just self-pres, is that when there is anger, it tends to be like this really quick spike. It's not something that lasts even a minute or more. It's very, very quick. And then it sort of gets contained back in the box again.
Yes. There's pinches and then there's crunches, and that was definitely a crunch. And lots of times nines will hide the pinches, the little irritable or annoying things. But I'm learning to actually skillfully deal with them instead of hide them, because if you just repress it or suppress it, it'll just turn into a crunch eventually.
Oh, listen, I'm loving your power posing gorilla in the street, taking up space, getting all territorial.
Yeah, this is my territory.
I like it. That's awesome. So my last question is, what creation, personal or professional, are you most proud of?
Yeah, this was an interesting question because my first thought was our three daughters, but I don't think that's really a valid answer. Well, maybe in some way it's the most fundamental.
It is for some people, so it can be an answer if that's what you want, but you can answer any way you like.
Yeah, so that was my first answer. I love teaching. I've taught about 40 classes at Stanford over the last 20 plus years. There's
Wow.
something so satisfying to see the light bulbs go off in
Mm,
students' eyes and to have these conversations. But it's also very ephemeral, because once the class is over, it's over. So that's why I also enjoy writing, because at the end, I have these 5 books I've written, and now I'm doing number 6, where
mm.
it's like a tangible reminder of the work, the creative work, and something that other people can also read and enjoy. So I think it's a combination of things, but ultimately it is my life, because every day we create our own day. So we're creating our own lives.
Yeah, yeah, you really are. And I love how you've covered all of it, the relationship piece with raising your daughters, the teaching piece. And to me, I think of teaching that like for 20 years, there's a consistency to it. Even with the 40 different classes, there's a consistency of showing up for those students and holding that space and structure for learning that I think is really admirable. And then writing, creating a legacy of something that other people can use and benefit from whenever they like. It's,
Mhm.
covering the gamut there. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.